Hello, and welcome to On My Shelf. Today I'm sharing about a fantastic young adult book about a girl, a road trip, and the concept of bodily autonomy. Plan A by Deb Caletti is the story of 16-year-old Ivy, who lives in small-town Texas and is planning to spend her summer working at her local drugstore to save money for her future, which includes traveling and college. But she accidentally gets pregnant, and her summer plans now include a long road trip to her grandmother's house in a state where she can legally get an abortion and, at the same time, escape the judgment of the people in her small town. She embarks on the journey from Texas to Oregon with her boyfriend, Lorenzo, and along the way collects stories of other women that begin to challenge the shame and stigma around reproductive rights. This book was probably the best and most powerful book I've read that explored such a touchy subject. Caletti is one of my favorite authors anyway, and she handled the subject matter with great care and deft nuance. From the supporting characters to the people Ivy met along the way, Caletti took readers right there along with Ivy on this road trip through small towns with fancy names. Through Ivy's teenage voice and with all her believable questions, Plan A had the feeling of a non-judgmental exploration of an incredibly complex issue. I think every teen can benefit from reading a book like this. Caletti is also the author of multiple young adult books, including one of my favorites, A Heart in a Body in the World. Let's dive a little deeper into the craft elements I loved in this book. Number 1, the voice. Ivy's voice was spot on for a 16-year-old. They don't know everything. She didn't claim to know everything. In fact, it was her questions that had the most resonance to me. She asked about people who believed differently than she did, people who were judging her. She pointed the finger back to herself and acknowledged she was likely judging them too. Sometimes she was feeling uncertain. Sometimes she crumbled under the weight of societal expectations. Sometimes she was incredibly strong. She was like every teenager. She was like every one of us. Number 2, the portrait of a small town. I've read a lot of books that take place in small towns. Many of them rely on stereotypes. And yeah, small towns can be pretty stereotypical sometimes. I grew up in one. My parents still live in one. I visit it every holiday and weekends in between. But small towns still shouldn't be a cliché. Caletti managed to show the characteristics of Paris, Texas, and not make them stereotypical. Sure, the people are closed-minded, but you'll find that anywhere. She showed how the people of small towns know everything about everybody, how word travels so fast, how secrets are pretty much non-existent unless you're very good at hiding. The people of Paris hold tight to their beliefs, however misguided they may be. But even within that, Caletti showed some exceptions. Exceptions exist everywhere, even in small towns. Number 3, the small moments. Sometimes we think, as writers, that every moment in a book needs to be a big moment. But Caletti proved otherwise. Some of the most beautiful moments in this book are small moments, when Ivy and Lorenzo are in the car, staring down an endless country road and nothing much is happening except silly conversation in the car. The book was full of delightful little moments that added up to big moments. Caletti is a master at making the insignificant feel significant. It was one of my favorite parts of this book. It reminded me to take time with those small moments. They don't always have to be big to be important. So here's what we can take away from Plan A. Don't be afraid to tackle big issues and examine them from all sides. Sometimes in my writing life and in my personal life, I shy away from these big, controversial issues. I'm afraid of making people mad, of disappointing people on the other side, of exploring something that might not be popular. But we benefit from the exploration of these topics, asking questions, talking with people, listening to the stories of others who don't believe the same things we do, asking why, which can sometimes lead to uncovering the nuance and humanity in people who are unkind and awful, not so we can justify their behavior, but just to understand them a little bit more and maybe remember that it's not personal against us. And to find humor in those really difficult moments. We all have our reasons for the ways we believe. It's worthwhile to learn that about each other so we can better understand our individual journeys and differences. That's it for today's On My Shelf. If you're interested in hearing an author's perspective on books, movies, and sometimes TV shows, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.